Welcome to the show, the Legal Edge Coaching Podcast. This is your host, Trevor J. White, joined as always with
your other host, Attorney Shane Smith from Shane Smith Law.
There we go. So it has been a fiery day of funness and wonderfulness. The gym kicked my ass today, and we've had some fun technology issues, and that has been exciting. And here's what I'll say right out of the gate. If you expect everything to go smoothly in life, you stand no chance. You just stand zero chance of actually doing anything of real value because it never goes as planned. Ever. So welcome to the show today, Shane, man. How you doing today?
I'm doing okay. We spent a bunch of money partially closing on my land today, and then just all of the other, run the office kind of deal stuff. So
yeah, well, that's exciting news on the land, man.
Yeah.
So tell us about that a little bit, because that's exciting what you're doing there, man.
So this is step one of the family ranch or family estate, whatever you want to call it, and so we did most of the closing today. We got to do one thing on Monday, but that's just a technicality kind of deal. But it's a large plot of land, and there's room for my in-laws, my parents, my brother and his wife and kids, and room for my kids too. So we're excited. It's right outside the city limits. It's in the county where we already live, but it's it's pretty cool. We're excited, but it's one of these things is going to take like 3-4 years, probably 3 years to get totally done. This is just step one.
Yeah. Well, it's a big step though, right? If you don't make this step happen, nothing happens.
None of the other stuff happens. No.
Yeah.
But it is. You hate spending that much money, though. Is what I'll say. Right? So. My wife said there was a bunch of money in her account, and now there's not. So
usually it's the other way around. I'm like, there's a bunch of money in my account. My wife's like, well, then we need to spend it.
Yeah.
Then we can't have that in there anymore. I think she's addicted to zeros in a bank account.
We've done that too, and years ago, that's when my wife made the suggestion of having two accounts. One where we keep sort of the threshold amount of money in there, the amount that makes her feel safe and secure, and like everything's going to be okay, but not all the excess funds go in there. She wanted those into a different account because, if you got a bunch of money in there, even though you're supposed to be saving stuff, it encouraged you to go spend it. And that was one of the ways we figured out to make our money situation work best was, the money goes into the other account, and then quarterly or monthly, we transfer enough over to top her off to that level where she likes to be, and that's worked for us.
Dude, that's great, man. Yeah, I've had to do something similar, but it's more so I just have I have an account that my wife doesn't necessarily know about. It's not that I'm hiding it from her, but it's the money to actually run our lives.
Yeah.
And then she's got the account that's kind of like, hey, go do your thing. Right? You want to go do this, you want to go do that, you want to do that. And, the bigger purchases, we just kind of talk together about it. And it's like, hey, but she doesn't really want to know, if that makes sense. It's not like I'm withholding it. She's just like, I don't give a shit. Do we have money to do this or not? If we don't, when are we going to have money to do this thing that I would like to go do, right? A trip or whatever it is. Like, so it's kind of good. I mean, I like it that way because I like to have control over things. But at the same time, sometimes she gets a little too excited.
So I was going to say, so does that mean you pay all the bills and like you actually write the checks or have it auto drafted or not? Because like in our account, the one my wife sees, she takes care of all the expenses and writes checks and pays for everything out of there.
Yeah, no, it's the opposite with me. Yep, I deal with all of that. So we learned about 2 years into our marriage that once she didn't pay our rent because we didn't have the money, because she had gone and got her hair done and her nails done because there was money in the account. And this is when we were very first married, just figuring out life. I think our rent was only like $500 a month. I mean, it was some little teeny apartment. But we go to pay rent, and she doesn't pay it. And she doesn't tell me she doesn't pay it because she's embarrassed. She doesn't know how. So she's just like hiding it. And, it's like she's eating the candy and there's chocolate over her face. I didn't eat any candy. It was one of those. Like, I'm like, why are we getting an eviction notice? Like, what the hell's going on here? And so we learned very early on in our relationship that she is amazing in a lot of things. That's not one of them. And so we just, instead of us trying to fight about it or whatever, I was like, I'm good with numbers and money, so I'm going to go ahead and take all this over. And it's not that big of a deal because everything's automated nowadays, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I haven't actually cut a check, like written a check, and I don't shoot.
Oh,
Right.
see, we actually, some of the stuff, now we've got some stuff on auto draft, but we've got some other stuff where we actually write checks uh, but I mean, they laugh because I don't actually have a debit card. I don't even own one. And she doesn't use hers to do anything other than get ATM money out. I mean, because
Right.
we're one of those people that uses the credit card and pays it off every month, but we pay it for all of our stuff, so we don't ever carry cash and we
Right.
don't have debit cards. So I mean,
That's a good move. Yeah. I like, well, in the credit card idea. Yeah. And they're, you probably have the rewards cards.
I have an
Right.
Amex, so Amex,
Yeah.
you have to the Amex I have, you have to pay off every month, right? Or at least
Yeah.
you used to. And we get
Yeah.
points. I mean, that's one of the. She spent a bunch of our points when we flew to Japan the first time because she wanted to upgrade the seats for her and me.
Yes.
So I think
Yes.
she spent a whole bunch of points to roll those seats from business class to first class.
Which I think was probably worth it. How long is that flight, bro? How long were you
Uh,
in the air for that thing?
It was like 14 hours,
Yeah, dude.
but my boys wanted to swap, and then coming back, she actually got airsick. So in the lay down seat, in the first class seat, so she ended up back in the business class seats, and so I joined her, and the kids rode in first class all the way back. So I was
Oh,
like,
dude, they're loving that.
yeah,
They weren't having a hard time. They weren't sad.
no, they were happy, but I was not overly happy about the whole thing because I was like, I paid a bunch of money for my kids to ride in first class. So
Yeah.
which
Yeah. What did it's yeah, but at the same time I'm like, well, look at that memory for your boys.
yeah,
Right?
they yeah, good for them,
What I used to, I don't travel as much. I used to travel all the time. Obviously, you know this, but and when I traveled all the time, I had all status with several airlines, but one in particular is Delta, right? So I always get upgraded. I never really had to buy a first class ticket. I just was always upgraded to first class, always. Like it would be like 8 out of 10 times I was riding first class, but so we were on a trip and with my family and. I got upgraded and I'd purchased the tickets separately, so they weren't even tied to me when they bought the tickets. We're all on the same flight, and we're coming back from a dance competition, and so she's got all her little dance friends. We're all pretty much on the same flight, so you got these 30 little girl dancers and all this stuff, and so it's exciting and all this. And I get upgraded to first class like normal, and I just look at my daughter, and she was 12 or 13 at the time, right? Just middle school age coming into it. And I'm like, do you want my seat? And she's like, where'd you get? I'm all first class. And she's like, what? She's like, yes. So she takes the seat, and we make sure that we get on before everybody else. So she gets to sit there. I wanted pictures. It was hilarious. So we're back in, your regular coach, not even, we're just back of the plane. And we're sitting there. And so she gets on like very first of the plane, and all of her little friends are coming on, right? And you know how you get on a plane, the first class is right there, and all of us cheap little, our lowly peasants, we have to go to the back, we have to go walk past, we have to see all the luxury of first class. And so all of her friends are walking by and seeing her sitting there, and she's like, hey guys, and they're just like, what? It was the funniest thing. Still, to this day, she talks about it as one of the greatest experiences in dance. And it had nothing to do with dancing. It was just the fact that she and that little 13-year-old or 12 or 13, she got to be the queen bee sitting there in first class while all of her friends were oogling over the which is hilarious, dude. We apply so much in our lives to status.
Oh yeah. I mean,
it's just crazy. It's wild how we do it and how important it becomes and how we posture for other people, right? And this is we kind of are just rolling open flow here on today's show, which I think is great. But I think it brings up this idea, like when we look at most of what we want in life, dude, has nothing to do with what we actually want. And I didn't realize this until I really started to dive in and get honest with myself, right? And really start to build and start to look at half the things I wanted. Dude, I didn't even want them. My mom wanted them for me. Or I thought, even worse, I thought that's what my mom wanted. Right? I thought she would want that. So I must want it too. It must be like the thing I'm supposed to go after, which, dude, I think can affect attorneys when they start into the game and get into what maybe even what area of law you go into.
Oh, it totally does, right? Because So like, I do personal injury work. I've done personal injury work. Before I did personal injury, I did criminal defense work. And, I'm trying to explain to, the premier law school jobs are, white collar, silk stocking, go work at a big law firm. And coming out sort of, it's a pitch like, come here, you make all this money. It's so glamorous. And, and I sort of took a different path now. And because I used to tell somebody I did almost like gutter law, right? As I'm doing stuff
Right.
representing, regular folks who got into trouble, criminal defense and personal injury. And we don't even do, I mean, we do more now, but in the beginning, we didn't do any of the glamorous personal injury even. We're doing car accidents. That's almost all we're doing.
Right.
And you compare that to, the business and the mergers and acquisitions and all that. And then though I sat down and I was like, shit, I make more money than all them, right? I make more money than them, and I don't, I'm my own boss and I run my own practice, and now obviously I work, and I worked a ton then, but it's still my own life, and I'm building my own thing, and it's I guess it's funny, because like you say, it's what kind of law you go into, it's how you present yourself, how you feel about yourself, and I was like, for in the early days, I was like, I'm sort of scratching a living out, and then it's like, well, no, hell no, it's not. I built a business. I built my own thing. I'm doing what I want. It's mine. And I make great money. And I talk to clients, and I get to do the kind of law I want to do. If you go work somewhere else and your boss says, go do it, you're not going to turn down that job you got because you don't want to read briefs and stuff. But out on your own, you're doing, within the first year, I'm talking to hundreds of clients. 2 years I'm doing, criminal defense. I'm on a murder case and sexual assault case. We get to live the life we build, like you say. And I think once you get past the maybe feeling bad about the life you create is what I'll say. And some of us do that, right? It's like never good enough. You became a lawyer because your parents pushed you. Then you went into this kind of law because somebody told you needed to, or you did this because somebody told. And I think it even goes to how you dress. Right. Yep. And, in the beginning, I was like, wear a suit. And then I had my own practice. And I went through a phase where I was like, I'm going to be California casual. So it was jeans and a blazer all the time. And then I morphed into, I wear a suit now every day to work, but suit and vest. But it's because that's what I want to wear. Not because anybody expects me to, not because I go to court in it. No, this is, it's the image, it's the brand I'm building. So that's what I do. But it's no longer about status. Does that make sense? It's no longer about status. How some other lawyer is going to look at me, because I know plenty of lawyers who, when they have their own shop, they start wearing jeans and, a shirt all the time kind of deal. It's
almost like the arrival. It's an interesting thing. I've watched it happen too, a lot, where you play the game, right? The suit and tie game, until you've reached in your own mind, some level or whatever. And then it's almost the opposite. Just kind of like where you went, like, oh, I'm going to go business casual or whatever. Like, and you go the other direction and you're like, well, I'm the head shit now, so I'm going to wear literally like this or whatever. It's like, I went through a tank top phase where I just love tank tops and I would wear them in inappropriate places.
Well, I was going to say, I think we go, it's a spectrum, right? We start over here, and then a lot of times we shift way over here, and we're like, whoa, I may have went a little too far in the casual. Let me figure out where I need to be. And you pivot back to where you want to go. But like cars is a huge issue, right? I mean, what vehicle you drive, and is it, and I think there's some self-worth issues there, but there's also some self-image, and then it's like, what do you want to do, right? And, like right now I drive a Raptor, and I think that, the truck, but sometimes it's like, do I want a sports car? And, I was thinking about swapping it, and then I was like, I like to drive my truck. It's a smooth ride. It hits a little pothole, it just keeps going, as opposed to, when I was in my little, I think it was my Porsche, when I hit a pothole and suddenly I got a busted tire and, it's off on the side of the road.
Oh, dude. Well, 100%. And sometimes we'll sacrifice what we want just because we think that other people are going to be impressed by that thing, right? And if you love a Porsche, then by all means, go buy a Porsche,
right?
Drive it, love it, and enjoy it. But if you're buying the Porsche because you think that's what the next step, or you think that that's going to somehow define that you're now successful, I can't tell you how many people I know personally and clients and just that whole world that they cannot afford their life.
Yeah. Okay.
But from the outside, you look at them and they can. You think, oh, they're doing great. What you don't know is the bank accounts are negative, right? And they're 2 months behind on a lease payment on that beautiful Porsche and all of these things. But on the surface, they're trying to present their world. And then they're stressed, worried, frustrated because they literally don't know how to they don't know how to get out of it. They get trapped in this world. And I think if we take it even further back, I have experienced where there are people who make a decision, and it could even be to be an attorney, and they only did it because that's what they were supposed to do.
Yeah.
Right. It wasn't even necessarily what they wanted to do. Like, and so then you talk to me about this idea, because here's what I know is really hard for people. Right. It's not necessarily right. You made a decision to be an attorney, and you go into the attorney, and then let's say you build yourself into a practice in your certain area of law that you don't like, but you're now trapped. Right? Meaning you built the life, right? So we built this life we wanted, but you now have the income. Let's just say, like, they got in there to make a difference, right? Which I think most attorneys do, right? They want to make a difference.
Most do, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's normal. It's like that's what you wanted, but then you choose something that maybe was financially lucrative, but now you're 5 years down the road, and you're kind of like, I've got a lifestyle, I've got a world that's relying on this type of income, but I am just bashing my head up against a wall because I did what someone else wanted me to do, and now I'm feeling trapped. Like, what's been your experience, because you've dealt with obviously lots of attorneys, you've hired lots of attorneys that have come and gone, and I'm sure some have found themselves in this place, right? They get in your world and they're like, I love this, and then they're like, oh no, wait, what do I do now?
And I think there's a couple options when somebody comes to me and they're in that situation, right? And one option is, have you tried to learn a lot about this area of law to see if through the process of learning you fall in love with it? And what I mean by that is, like, even when I suffer from burnout, one of the main ways I combat that is I read about the industry leaders in personal injury, the ones who are winning and championing and fighting and basically dominating. I read their stories and read their techniques, and it usually gets me fired up, right? So that would be my first piece of advice is, if you're there, buy one or two of those books, read 15 minutes a day, see if you can fall in love with the help we do. Because I think that's the key. You've got to figure out how to quit seeing files and start seeing clients and people. And I think if you do that, that alone can fix a bunch of issues, right? For number one. But sometimes it won't. And if it doesn't, then I think you're left with two choices here. One is to evaluate your job, figure out what parts of it you like and which ones you don't, and see if you can outsource the parts you don't like. Whether it's, hiring another associate to do the stuff you don't like. Like, there are parts of personal injury I hate. I hate to do probate. It makes me absolutely crazy. I also hate to do discovery and answer interrogatories. It makes me sad. I just don't like it. So the first things I did was hired an associate to deal with probate, hired an associate to deal with discovery. So those parts of my job were gone, and I didn't have to do them anymore. So I crafted a job that I liked a lot more, right? So I liked the area, but I cut out the parts I didn't want to do. And the third one is just, okay, you're in deep. You need to make a pivot. How do we make a pivot without destroying your life? And that's the hardest of the three, right? I mean, that's the one that takes a lot more skill, a lot more strategic planning. How do you build up one practice and let the other bleed out? And that happened to me when I was doing, early on the days of the firm, I was doing criminal defense and I was doing personal injury. And my wife was doing the case management part at home. So I would go to court every Monday, usually every Wednesday, and sometimes half a Tuesday. So I'm in court gone. And during breaks, I'm calling my wife, trying to answer questions and calling clients, and stepping out and doing all this stuff. And, that's when I was driving and on the phone for an hour every day. And I was getting where I enjoyed the criminal stuff less and less and less. But I needed the money, right? So it wasn't like I could just be like, this is done, because personal injury wasn't paying the bills. So it was like, okay, how do I develop a strategy so that I can wean down the criminal defense and build up the personal injury so I'm not in a cash crunch, right? And we reached a point, so I knew that's what I wanted to do. So I worked towards that. All the extra money I had went into advertising for personal injury. I started to structure the practice based around personal injury, and you reach a point to where criminal defense isn't the main thing now producing, and then you could accelerate that stoppage. But it's tough. It takes a plan. It wasn't like I woke up one day and said, "Hey, I'm not taking any more criminal clients." That would have been a huge
Yeah.
financial hurdle. But those are the three ways to do it. Just start reading about our winners. Two, see if we can outsource the parts you hate. And three, takes more time, but develop a strategy to transition over to something else, which can be done, right? And I think any one of those three will work, just depending on which one suits you better. Some of them are just harder and more complex. Like the transition to strategy, I mean, that's from one practice area to another. That's going to take some mapping out. It's going to take some thought. It's going to take some diversion of resources, because you're going to take a hit financially, either while you build up the other practice or while you divert income or something else. But like I say, with thought and a plan, it can happen. But you don't want to just wake up Wednesday morning and saying, "Hey, I'm going to a new practice area." I mean, that's a disaster.
Yeah. Well, that's choosing the hardest road that you could possibly choose for yourself. But
yeah,
it's tough because a lot of times people don't have the plan in the first place. And so they get wrapped in, and then they're like, well, how do I do this? And I think that's the critical part. As I look at the 3 steps you just gave, they're freaking brilliant. But also, they're all centered around the fact that you're in control.
Yeah.
Like you can craft it, and even if you even if you didn't, you were still in control. But even if you didn't feel like you were in control before, and you built yourself into a corner, you are in control to turn around and build yourself out of it with the strategy to literally build whatever it is that you want. And that's what becomes critical, though, is marrying all this up, the strategy and the plan and all of that, to what is it you actually want. What you want, not what somebody wants for you, or in any way, shape, or form.
Well, like even in my own practice, we get associates who join us because they just want to do personal injury work. And what I mean by that is they don't want to do the administrative stuff. They don't want to do the hiring. They don't want to do the payroll, the advert. They don't want to do any of that. They just want to do personal injury law. So that's what they do. And, that's one of but they're choosing that, right? They know what they want. And a lot of times they've tried doing all of it, and they're like, parts of this job are suck. They're doing that outsourcing, basically. They're saying, I'm going to outsource all that to you, Shane, and I'm going to go do what I want to do. And great, it works well for us, but it's a choice. And I think that's the key part you're talking about, is they've got to make the choice, right? And you've got to decide that you're in control, you can influence things, you're not a victim, and then build out from there according to the plan. And that's what, we've helped people transition into different areas of law. And the ones that are most successful are the ones that do it according to a plan versus the ones who wake up on Wednesday and say, hey, I'm going to totally change my practice tomorrow, which, okay, but that creates a lot of stress and financial uncertainty for you and your spouse.
Yeah. Well, there's an attorney that we work with over in L.A. area, and he is just a sole guy. He literally didn't have any employees when we started working with him. Not even a receptionist, not assistant, nothing. Which dude is crazy. He's doing all right. He's making about $20K a month revenue for himself. But he was very aware. He just created a job for himself, and he's like, holy shit, how do I do this? And he was going after one area of law, and he realized that he had money there, but there was no passion there. He didn't really enjoy it. So 2 things happened is we lined out a very specific plan on, okay, 2 things need to happen. Number 1, you got to turn this into a company, not a job for yourself. Right. What does that look like, right? So it was like, how do we do that? What is the first hire? What's the path? What's the path to actually doing that? And then what's the actions needed to take? And then the second one was, what kind of law do you actually want to do? Yeah. Right? What's lucrative in the money you want to make, and what's the thing? And then we were able to identify what he was actually passionate about. And then just like you described, his advertising, even just with his SEO guy, right? We just shifted things a little bit, changed the messaging so that leads coming in were now geared towards the thing he was passionate about. And the coolest thing happened. He's on the cusp. He's interviewing right now to hire, right? Which is awesome because he's and it's kind of like a hybrid position because he's just one guy, right?
No,
so it's more like
and he didn't have anybody, so he's thinking, I'm going to lose money. I know how that is.
100%. That was the biggest hurdle to get him over, was the fact that he's like, I'm going to bring the salary in, and I want to have this and that, and I'm all, bro, no, you cannot grow unless you do this. This is the only way. And he finally got him there, right? Yeah. So he gets there, and it's cool because he's on the cusp of hiring, and he was at the time when we first began, he was about, like I said, about $20K a month in revenue. In the month of May, he hit 60,000.
Yeah.
June is obviously when the time we're recording this, we got a couple days left in June. His anticipation, he's got one more settlement that should come through, which will put him at 65K. And these aren't like one or two cases. These are these are small little cases of what he does. But all of that new revenue has actually come in the thing he's passionate about.
Yeah, which is awesome.
Dude, it's been the coolest thing to watch him because, dude, he's just lighting up. He's found, and when he first jumped in the game with Legal Edge, he was in a position where he just was not passionate about anything. Nothing. Like, he didn't even know what he wanted because he kind of just was doing his thing, and it was what paid the bills. And now he's on his home life. Like, it wasn't in shambles, but it wasn't great, right? And his body was falling apart because he wasn't devoting any time. I mean, every part of him was kind of in this very dangerous, slippery slope down. And now you fast forward just a few months, he's in this position where, dude, everything has transformed and changed. But it comes down to exactly what dude, those 3 steps you just gave. If anyone on this listening to the show today, you're in this place, which most of you are in one way or another, right? There's shit you're doing you don't like, right? Parts of it, right? It's crafting it, building it out. If you can take those steps and realize there's a plan, you're in control, and just make the shift and realize it's not going to happen in one day, or even 1 week, or maybe even 1 month. It's going to happen over time. The guy, our client down there, I don't want to use his name, just because I don't know if he'd want me broadcasting it, but he's this transformation has been over 6 months.
Right. That's what I was going to say. It's about 5-6 months, right? I mean, which is a huge transformation from, even if you just look at the money, 20 to 65 is massive. He tripled his income or his revenue.
Yeah.
And then to go from having nobody to one person's huge, because that is going to change a bunch. And, along those same lines, though, about outsourcing the parts of the job you don't like, it took a long time for me to realize that just because I didn't like to do something didn't mean that somebody else didn't like to do it. And I mean, and it's baffling to me, right? Because I look at it and say, this is terrible. Who would want to do this, right? It's awful. Well, there are people who love to do it. I mean, I hate making travel arrangements, right? It drives me nuts. It gets me grumpy. I look at this flight or this flight. I just don't enjoy any aspect of it whatsoever. But I got a woman in my office who's loved to do it. I got a travel agent I deal with I assume she loves to do it. I mean, it's her full-time job. So
right, she does.
If she doesn't like to do it, she needs a new job. But
she needs to follow the 3 steps you just laid out.
Exactly. But there are people who like doing almost everything, right? One man's trash is another man's treasure. I mean, your miserable job is a job somebody else loves to do. Why in the world are you stealing that joy from them, making them do something else? Let them do what they like to do and let you do what you like to do. I mean, I don't know. That was a tough concept for me to grasp, honestly.
Yeah, I think it was hard for me. I think it's hard for everyone, just because it's growth. You got to let go, and you're stepping into the unknown. And I think this is why what we do at the Legal Edge, I think, is mission critical for everyone. It's why I even do it. It's why you and I even are in this position, because we have been down the road we're talking about, and we know how hard it is. We know that, yes, you can do it on your own, but man, it's like the example I was giving, like 6 months, dude. He tried to pull this off on his own. He wouldn't have. It's not even that.
And not only would he not do it, he was right on the cusp of that downward cascading effect where it impacts your whole life. You get burned out. I mean, it's like all the stories we talk about, right? You hate your job, so pretty soon you're drinking something at 3:00 to get through the day, or you're getting short with your wife and kids. I mean, you're right on the cusp of total burnout and disaster, where men, I'm going to say men just because I'm a man, you start making bad decisions. The next thing you know, you're like, my home life sucks. Let me find something different. And that's not what this dude wanted. He wanted just to change his practice area. And in 6 months, help him identify where he wanted to go, make some initial changes, then make some more changes. And 6 months later, he's made a total practice reversal, but he's well on his way.
Yeah, well, he's following the map that was created, that we helped him create and put it together based on what we've already done. It wasn't like hypothetical. It wasn't theory. It wasn't some bullshit. And that's the problem, I think, with the internet today. A lot of gurus. And I get it. You're watching this, like, as a viewer or listener, you're hearing this on some type of a device. Right. So I'm sitting here talking trash on the device. But at the same time, it's because there's so many charlatans out there who are just teaching theory and talking about, hey, there's a way to pull this off through this principle, and you just got to have more discipline, and you just got to do. I'm like, dude, that's not it. It's not even. You need a new marketing technique. You know what's the craziest part about creating the plan that we did for him is the fact that in creating that plan, it was very tactical in a really different way than you would think. Right? We worked on building him. Because, I mean, most of it was centered on getting him very clear about who he was and what he actually wanted for him.
That's the key.
Yes.
I mean, and not to interrupt, Trevor, but I think as a person who struggled with what I wanted, right? And I used to get so pissed off when a coach or what would be like, well, just write down what you want. Like I should know already. If I knew already, it'd be, sometimes it takes a while to figure that out, and it takes a discovery process and some trial and error. I mean, like finding a new hobby, right? You can't just decide I'm going to go out and pick a new hobby, and maybe you're right the first time, but you're probably not. Yeah. There's a discovery process somebody's got to go through, and sometimes it helps to be guided and prompted and spend some time on it and have it marinate and like you say, to figure out what you want and then discover that and then make a plan to go after it.
Yep. Well, simple as that. So if that's something that we can help you with here at the Legal Edge, we are more than happy to jump on a call and kind of deep dive into your world and dive into where you're at and see what blind spots you currently have that are holding you back from what we're talking about here and help you with those critical pivots. We've also got our book that has just been released, The Power of the Pivot. You can get a free copy of that book by heading over to legaledgecoaching.com. The link is here in the description. If you're watching this on YouTube or if you're on Spotify, iTunes, etc., it should be in the description there too. So just go ahead and click on that, and I'll also give you the ability to get on our calendar to dive in deep to you and your firm, your life, your world, and really figure out what is it you really want and how do you go about doing it in a plan with a very simple laid out plan. These deep dive sessions are some of my favorites to do because in just a few minutes, you get some critical insight on where you need to go. Like, what do you actually need to do? What's some insight that you get from, to be able to move forward on that? So we appreciate you guys being listeners of the show. We appreciate it. And if you got value from today's show, go ahead and share this show up with a friend. You got a colleague, you got somebody you work with that might get value from today's show. Maybe you know somebody who's stuck in that realm and they're like, man, these 3 steps that Shane laid out would make a huge difference. Share that show up with them so that they can also get value from it as well. So that being said, Shane, any final thoughts?
All I'm going to say is I think when this podcast airs, we're right at the end of Q2. And I tell everybody, take a look at your yearly goals. Find out if you're on track or off track, and or maybe you don't even have any yearly goals this year. And if that's something that's concerning to you and you are off pace, I know, Trevor, we've got a workshop coming up where we're helping some of our clients dig into that and find out whether they're on track or not. I think they can find info on that on the same page with the book. And if that's helpful, click on it and let's get started. Like I said, the year's halfway over, and that assumes you count Q4, which usually is a black hole of productivity if you're not real careful. So just make sure you're on track.
That's even more reason why you need a plan. Or literally 3 months of the year becomes a waste of time. And you're like, well, I guess we'll start over next year. So.
I've done that. So
yeah, so have I. I've done it more than once. So this is why I know. So, all right, we appreciate you guys being listening to the show. We are out of here. Have a fantastic rest of your day.